At 6:23 a.m. on a Wednesday, I was sitting at my dining table with a cold croissant, a compliance report that looked like a dissertation, and a Bloomberg terminal notification that had been pinging since midnight. My first call of the day was with a client in London who wanted to escalate about a settlement delay that was not technically our fault. Their custodian had flagged a discrepancy on their end. I knew this. They knew this. But someone needed to absorb the frustration. I de-escalated it like always, documented the timeline, offered a remediation pathway, made them feel heard. 30 minutes later, the Singapore desk pinged about a backlog of trade confirmations stuck in someone's idea of an approval workflow, the workflow that had been redesigned without consulting anyone who actually processed transactions. I fixed that too, like I always did. This was just normal. For 8 years, I was the quiet engine keeping our largest institutional client relationship from imploding. I did not ask for recognition. I did not make noise. I did not post about my wins on the company intranet or request speaking slots at town halls. I just delivered. While the rest of the organization chased fintech buzzwords and rearranged deck chairs on the digital transformation Titanic, I was putting out real fires with my bare hands and a wet regulatory filing. The portfolio we managed for this client exceeded $2 billion. It represented 37% of our institutional assets under management. It had a 17-year track record of consistent performance. It was the crown jewel of the firm's client roster. Those numbers existed because of my team, because of the relationships I cultivated, because of the processes I implemented, because of the trust I had built over 8 years of early morning calls and late-night reviews. The managing director, back when he actually ran the desk, once called me the account's immune system, said it during a partner meeting, said it like he was introducing a secret weapon. I laughed at the time, but I knew what he meant. I kept the whole relationship from collapsing. That managing director retired 14 months ago, took his golden parachute, left the rest of us to deal with what came next. If you are nodding along, hey, maybe hit that like button, or even subscribe. 93% of you ghosts listen anyway. It really does help the team behind the scenes keep pushing these stories out. All right, enough commercial. Let us get back to the wreckage. The thing is, quiet competence works until the volume gets cranked by someone who thinks shouting equals strategy. Enter Preston. He arrived like a Wall Street cannon out of a Harvard Business School catalog. Custom suit, Hermes tie, a spreadsheet fetish, and the kind of ego that required its own corner office before he had closed a single deal. He walked into the trading floor like he owned the place, which, in a way, he did. His father had made sure of that, his father. Board member's former fraternity brother pulled strings to get him the head of client relations title before he could explain the difference between alpha and beta, before he understood how margin calls worked, before he had ever managed a client relationship larger than his trust fund portfolio. He was 33 years old with 30 years of confidence and 3 years of experience. I met him in the hallway on his second day. He was trying to figure out how to use the conference room booking system, the same system I had helped implement 4 years ago, the same system that had instructions posted on every floor. Said something like, "You must be Victoria. I have heard you basically are this account." I smiled. We both knew it was not a compliment. It was a warning. He was marking his territory, letting me know that whatever I had built, he planned to restructure. At first, he was all charm and awkward handshakes. But within 8 weeks, it started. Meetings where I was suddenly not invited. Emails that went out to the client without review. Fee structure changes that ignored. The realities of our service agreement, like fiduciary duty, was optional. He would CC me on announcements that affected my team, then ghost me when I asked for context. He would schedule meetings during times he knew I had client calls. He would take credit for quarterly results that my team had produced. At one point, he called my work legacy relationship management in a department-wide email. I was not tagged. I was just the punchline. The email was CC'd to 43 people, including the partners, including the board representatives, including the clients he had never actually met. And the worst part, people started listening to him because he had a title and a jawline and a slide deck with the word optimization in 42-point font. He wore confidence like cologne, and most of the partners, too tired or too distracted. Let him spray it everywhere. They saw the Harvard MBA. They saw the family connection. They saw the promises of margin improvement. They did not see the destruction he was causing to relationships that took years to build. Meanwhile, I was still doing the job, still managing the client, still fielding those early morning crisis calls, staying up late to review quarterly reports, checking performance attributions line by line so nothing caught fire. I was the one who called Margaret on her birthday. I was the one who remembered that her daughter had just started college. I was the one who knew that she preferred phone calls to emails and face-to-face meetings to video conferences. Preston did not know any of this. Preston did not care to learn. Preston thought relationships could be managed with algorithms and automation. My team knew. They saw what was happening. But we were told to align with Preston's vision and lean into the modernization. What modernization? Taking a stable, revenue-generating relationship and stuffing it into a blender labeled operational efficiency. I did not argue. Not yet. I watched. I documented. And when he called my client management approach outdated, I smiled and nodded. Let the boy hang himself with his own fee schedules. But I will admit, by the third time I was cut from a client review, I felt it. That crawl in your chest that whispers they do not want you here anymore. Still, I had leverage. They just did not know it yet. And Preston, he was about to find out what happens when you mistake silence for surrender. The first time Preston rewrote my client meeting agenda without consulting me, I figured it was a rookie mistake. The second time, I thought maybe it was ego. By the third, when he rerouted a $4 million advisory fee through his former classmate's consulting firm, I realized we were not dealing with inexperience. We were dealing with entitlement dressed up in a Brioni suit. Preston did not ask. He declared. One morning, I logged in and found a brand new client reporting portal live for my team. No notice, no testing, no compliance verification. Just a link in the internal chat with the caption, "Try this out. It is way more dynamic." It did not even have proper audit trails. Analysts spent 5 hours just figuring out how to reconcile it with our existing systems. We flagged the risks. I flagged the risks repeatedly. I kept a running list, missing regulatory disclosures, unclear fee transparency, a data integration that had more compliance holes than a Swiss cheese factory. I sent it to legal. I copied Preston. He responded once. "We will fix it on the fly. Move fast. Iterate faster." Victoria, move fast. Iterate faster. Great slogan for a tech startup. Terrible for a $22 million institutional account with fiduciary obligations. Then came the email, the one he sent department-wide. The subject line was Client Excellence Initiative Phase 2, and right there in the fourth paragraph was this gem. Some legacy processes remain in place due to internal resistance from team members set in their ways. We appreciate your patience as we modernize. Set in their ways. He did not name me, but come on. I was the only senior relationship manager still remaining from the original account onboarding. It was a slap across the face delivered with a passive-aggressive signature block. One of my junior analysts messaged me right after. "Was that about you?" I did not answer. Instead, I reviewed the contract, the investment management agreement, because Preston had started making noise about transitioning the account to a lower-cost service model. "Reduce the white glove treatment and boost margins," he said in one meeting. Never mind that the client's IMA specifically required a dedicated senior relationship manager. Never mind that I was named as the primary client liaison, and never mind that we had a clause buried 5 pages deep, added back in 2018 during a period of market volatility that tied the agreement's continuation to named personnel presence. Named personnel presence. Me. When I brought it up casually in a leadership sync, Preston waved it off. "We will get the client to amend that." It is outdated language. I asked if legal had reviewed his new service model. He smiled and said, "Legal works for us. They will sign off." I could have laughed, but I did not. I just bookmarked the clause again and sent a quiet note to legal with the subject line, Reminder, Article 9.2, named relationship personnel and continuity terms. No commentary. Just the clause and a timestamp. After that, things moved faster. I was removed from quarterly calls with the client. Preston sent a junior associate in my place, a well-meaning but deer-in-headlights type who thought AUM meant assets under modification. The client noticed. Of course they did. Where is Victoria, they asked. On more than one call. Oh, she is working on internal optimization, the team replied. I was sitting 2 floors above them, watching, listening, waiting. The pressure started to build, not in outbursts, in the way every hallway conversation ended when I walked past. In the polite silences, in the sudden missed invites to meetings I had led for years, I was being erased one calendar update at a time. But you do not erase someone like me that easily. You do not spend 8 years building a relationship with your fingerprints on every touch point just to get ghosted by a nepotism hire with an MBA and a hard-on for restructuring. So I stayed quiet. Let them build their sandcastle. Let them move the pieces. Let them forget the foundation had my name on it in ink. It was the quarterly partner meeting. Suits present. Smiles fake. You know the kind. The family photo of corporate dysfunction where everyone pretends Preston is not just the board member's favor dressed in human form. I was slotted 3rd on the agenda, right after the new marketing director announced we had a podcast now. My update was routine. Client satisfaction metrics, asset retention rates, fee realization numbers. The same block of data I delivered every quarter like clockwork. Except this time, I was not just reporting numbers. I was marking territory. Showing that the relationship was not just stable, it was thriving. And it was doing so under the framework I had built. I had maybe 6 sentences in when it happened. Preston leaned forward, smiling like he was about to propose to a reality TV judge. Actually, Victoria, he said, cutting me off mid-slide. This will be the last time you are presenting on this account. We are transitioning to a centralized service model effective next quarter. And then, just like that, he clicked the mute button, muted in front of the CEO, the partners, the board representatives, the entire leadership team. I could not unmute myself. He had disabled my presenter rights, just a frozen image of me holding a pointer, mouth slightly open mid-statistic. Every fiber of professional training screamed at me to stay composed. Behind the eyes. Fire. You want to talk humiliation. Try having your legacy wiped like a dry erase board in front of 47 partners and 6 board members while your replacement plan is announced like a product launch. You want to talk fury. Try being silenced in real time about an account your fingerprints are embedded into. While a man who still does not understand the difference between gross and net returns calls it his efficiency win. Here is the thing Preston did not know. You mute my mic. I sharpen my aim. I did not say a word. I did not flinch. I stared into that camera like it owed me carried interest. And then I closed the laptop. Mid-zoom, mid-smirk. Gone. Let him sit in that silence. Let him fumble through the rest of my report like a drunk reading a prospectus. What most people did not notice, what Preston certainly did not see, was the general counsel 2 squares over on the Zoom grid. She leaned forward right after it happened, took out a pen, started writing something down. I caught it before I exited. Her expression was not confusion, it was calculation. Because you do not mute a named individual without consequence, especially not when her name is on the clause that protects the firm's largest revenue stream. I did not go home that night. I went to my old folder labeled Client Continuity. I opened the agreement. The real one. The one I helped draft during the volatility of 2018. The one that said in very plain legalese that if I resigned voluntarily, the client could terminate the relationship, no fees, no arbitration, no transition period. I was the linchpin. And now the whole firm had watched Preston announce my irrelevance on the record, with witnesses, under a Zoom license that logs everything. So I started planning. Not for revenge, for release. It was October 2018. Markets were volatile. The client was nervous about their portfolio and threatening to move their assets unless we locked down a dedicated senior relationship manager. I remember sitting in my home office on a call with their chief investment officer, a woman named Margaret who did not suffer fools or underperformance. We had been in discussions for weeks. The portfolio was solid, but the client was anxious. They had been burned before by firms who promised white glove service and delivered call center responses. Her exact words were, "We need continuity." Victoria, not just in title, in person. She kept this relationship alive during the correction. If she leaves, we leave. At the time, I was too buried in market analysis to realize how rare that sentence was. A client asking for a specific person by name in an IMA. That almost never happens in institutional asset management. I looped in legal. We drafted the clause. Standard at first, dedicated relationship resource, subject to mutual agreement, blah, blah, blah. Then Margaret sent back her red line. She added 3 words, specifically Victoria Hartwell. Our general counsel raised an eyebrow. "You sure about this tying it to a person?" "Not a position." Margaret did not blink. "Your firm sells stability. She is stability." So we did it. Article 9.2, Continuity of Named Relationship Personnel. The language was very specific. It was not just a preference. It was not just a guideline. It was a contractual requirement. If the named person was terminated, the client would have to be notified and given the opportunity to approve a replacement. But if the named person resigned voluntarily, the client could walk. No fees, no arbitration, no transition penalties. At the time, I thought it was just a formality, a nice gesture from a client who appreciated my work. I did not realize I was signing my own insurance policy. The clause was buried deep in the agreement. Page 61 of an 89-page document. Most people never read past page 15. I had a copy saved in my personal files. I reviewed it every year during agreement renewal, not because I was planning anything, just because I believed in knowing the terms of my own employment. Turns out that habit would save me. After the Zoom mute heard around the firm, I pulled up the agreement again. My version. Not the one in the shared drive that had been cleaned up by Preston's assistant, the real one. There it was, page 61, paragraph 4. If Victoria Hartwell, the named Senior Relationship Manager, voluntarily resigns her employment, client reserves the right to terminate this agreement immediately without further obligation, notice, or financial penalty. You ever read a sentence that makes your blood go cold and then warm again? I stared at those words for a long time. Then I took a screenshot. I saved a PDF copy. I emailed both to myself. Subject line Article 9.2, Insurance. Then, without a word, I opened the secure legal repository we all had access to, the CYA folder we jokingly called it. I uploaded the full unedited agreement, added one note in the metadata, original version, executed October 2018. I did not send an alert. I did not forward it with passive-aggressive commentary. I just made sure it was there, time-stamped. Quietly breathing in the corner of the corporate server, waiting. HR called me in 2 days after the Zoom ambush, voice trembling like they had drawn the short straw in a hostage negotiation. I walked in, iced latte in hand, and sat down like I had nothing better to do. Because technically, I did not. Preston had already gutted half my responsibilities. My calendar was empty, except for the meetings I was no longer invited to. The HR rep, Caroline, opened with the corporate soft sell. "Hey, Victoria, just wanted to circle back on Monday's call. I think there may have been a bit of miscommunication." I let the silence stretch until she got uncomfortable. She shifted in her seat, rearranged her papers, took a sip of water from a branded company tumbler. She tried again. Preston's announcement. He did not mean it personally. You know, he is new to the culture here, still finding his rhythm. Sometimes new leaders come in with strong opinions and need time to understand the nuances. I blinked. He muted me in front of the partners. Caroline, in front of 6 board members, in front of 47 senior colleagues. He announced my replacement while I was mid-sentence. She winced. I know. I know it was not handled well. But we are hoping we can move forward constructively. I waited. She continued. The firm values you. Victoria. We really do. Preston's approach was perhaps more aggressive than it needed to be, but the underlying goals are sound. Efficiency matters. Margin improvement matters. I set down my latte. Caroline. Has anyone from leadership actually read Article 9.2 of the Investment Management Agreement? Her face went blank. I am not sure what you mean. The named personnel clause. The one that ties the agreement's continuation to my presence. The one that allows the client to walk if I resign. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I would have to check with legal on that. Maybe you should, I said, before this conversation goes any further. She gave me that sympathetic HR smile, the kind that says, please do not sue us. Just internalize this emotional abuse like a team player. Then she offered the olive branch. Maybe we could frame this transition as a strategic pivot. We would love to keep you involved during the handoff. Your expertise is valuable. We want to capture your institutional knowledge before the centralized team takes over. I sipped my latte. Am I being terminated? Her mouth opened, then closed. Oh, no. Of course not. You are still employed. We value you. This is just about finding the right role for you in the new structure. Translation. We are hoping you will not make this ugly. I stood up. Then we are done here. Outside the glass box of HR appeasement, my team was unraveling. Marcus, my senior analyst, caught me near the elevators. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. Victoria, people are freaking out. They heard about the clause. Is it true? I paused. What did you hear? That the client can walk. No penalties if you quit. That the whole account is tied to you staying. I looked at him. Marcus had been with me for 5 years. He had worked weekends. He had pulled all-nighters during earnings seasons. He had believed in the service we provided together. Who told you I asked? It is all over the floor. Someone from legal leaked something. Screenshots are going around. People are saying Preston did not know, that he announced your replacement without reading the IMA. I did not confirm or deny, just told him to keep his head down and not forward anything to his personal email. Let us not give them an excuse to pull compliance audits. Then I added something else. Marcus, whatever happens next, it is not your fault. None of this is your fault. You did good work. The client relationship is solid because of people like you. Remember that. He looked at me for a long moment. Are you leaving? I did not answer. I just walked to my desk and started packing. The next partner meeting was scheduled for 9:00 a.m. sharp. I could feel the tension humming through the conference line before anyone even spoke. Cameras flickered on like stage lights. Partners, board representatives, a few brave souls from client services pretending they had not heard the rumors swirling all week. The Zoom grid filled up slowly. 47 faces. Some looked nervous. Some looked curious. Some were clearly just there because attendance was mandatory. I logged in at 8:59, camera off, microphone muted, resignation letter folded neatly beside me. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I had rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times. At 9:00 a.m., Preston opened the show. Morning team. He chirped, eyes too bright, suit too crisp. That perfect veneer of someone who has no idea what is about to happen. Excited to share some progress on our Client Excellence Initiative. We are already seeing strong signals from the transition planning. The centralized service model has been approved and is ready for implementation. He clicked through a slide deck. Efficiency gains, margin projections, a timeline that showed my role being eliminated in 3 phases. He did not mention my name. He did not have to. Everyone knew whose position was being restructured. He talked for exactly 60 seconds. I counted. Let him build his house of cards on camera. Let him make his promises. Let him commit to a plan that was about to collapse. Then I turned on my video. The virtual background filled the screen. White text, black field, simple, devastating. I resign. Effective 9:01 a.m. For 3 seconds, nothing moved. Preston's mouth was still open mid-sentence, his slide deck frozen on a chart showing projected margin improvements. The CEO's face went from composed to panicked. The general counsel's pen stopped moving. One of the board members actually leaned back in their chair like they had been physically pushed. The chat exploded. What is happening? Is this real? Did she just resign on camera? Someone check the IMA. Preston tried to mute me again. His hands scrambled for the controls, but it was too late. The recording had already captured everything. The timestamp was logged. The resignation was official. The CEO typed in all caps in the chat. What is happening? Someone explain. I unmuted myself. The click was audible through the silence, just long enough to say 5 words. Check Article 9.2. Goodbye. My voice was calm, steady. The voice of someone who had already won. Then I left the meeting, closed the laptop, walked to my car. I did not look back. By 10:00 a.m., the client's legal team had already requested a call. By noon, they had formally invoked the termination clause. By 3:00 p.m., $22 million in annual management fees was walking out the door with me. The general counsel called me that afternoon, not to threaten, to confirm. The clause was triggered, she said. Her voice was flat, professional. It was valid, binding, and ignored by leadership despite repeated warnings. She did not mention names. She did not need to. It was not just about the money. It was the optics. The firm's marquee client, built on 8 years of trust, market cycles survived, and a relentless stream of quiet excellence had been vaporized by one ill-timed mute button and a son's inflated sense of invincibility. By sunset, financial Twitter had caught wind of the story. Someone leaked a vague thread. Head of client relations silences relationship manager on live Zoom. 24 hours later, $2 billion account gone. Wonder why? The post had 18,000 likes in 3 hours. Quote tweets started piling up. People sharing their own stories of corporate dysfunction. People tagging journalists who covered the wealth management industry. Someone made a meme. Preston's face photoshopped into the "This is fine" dog, surrounded by burning client statements. By the next morning, 3 different financial podcasts had referenced the incident. One of them called it the most expensive mute button in asset management history. I got a text from Elena, one of my former analysts who had left the firm a year ago. You nuked them with one gesture. Legendary. Then another from Marcus. They are walking around like it is a crime scene. Preston has not left his office all day. The CEO is in back-to-back calls with the board, and another from someone I did not recognize. Article 9.2. Beautifully played. I work at a competitor, and we are reviewing all our IMAs now. I did not reply to any of them. I was busy reviewing an offer from a different firm, a new one that had called me earlier that morning to discuss a senior partnership track. They had seen the fallout. They knew the value. They wanted the person who understood relationships, not the boy who destroyed them. The partner who called me was direct. We saw what happened. We know your track record. We want you to build something here. No restructuring, no efficiency initiatives. Just client service the way it should be done. I asked about the terms. She laughed. Victoria, we will put whatever clauses you want in the agreement. Named personnel, continuity provisions, whatever makes you comfortable. We learned from watching what happens when firms do not protect their best people. That was the moment I knew I had won. Not because of the money, though the money was substantial. Not because of the title, though the title was impressive, but because the industry had finally noticed what I had always known. Relationships matter. People matter. The quiet ones who keep the lights on matter. And when you forget that, you pay the price. By Friday, Preston was stripped of client oversight, quietly suspended pending internal review. Though everyone knew what that meant, his Slack profile disappeared. His corner office was reassigned. His ergonomic chair was quietly returned to facilities. The only trace he left was a meeting titled Client Excellence Synergies that nobody had the heart or energy to delete. I heard later what happened in the executive meeting. The CEO had called an emergency session the morning after my resignation. The room was silent when he walked in. He did not sit down. He just stood at the head of the table and looked at each person in turn. Who knew about Article 9.2, he asked. Hands went up. Legal knew. Compliance knew. Half the relationship management team knew. The only person who apparently did not know was the person who had been making all the decisions. Preston, to his credit, tried to defend himself. I was told the clause was outdated, he said. I was told we could get the client to amend it. I was following the efficiency playbook. The CEO did not respond. He just pulled up the timestamp on the legal repository. The one showing I had uploaded the original agreement 2 days before the partner meeting. The one showing multiple views from the legal team. The one showing exactly 0 views from Preston's account. You had 48 hours to read a document that would have saved this firm $22 million annually. The CEO said, "You did not even open it." Preston tried one more time. She was blocking progress. She was resistant to change. She was set in her ways. The CEO shook his head. She was the account, Preston. She was literally written into the agreement, and you muted her on camera in front of the entire partnership. That was the last time Preston spoke in that room. His departure was announced the following week. The press release said he was leaving to pursue other opportunities. The industry knew better. The ripple effects continued for weeks. The head of HR resigned. Not because she was forced out, but because she had warned leadership about Preston 3 times and been overruled each time. She sent me a message before she left. "You did what I could not. Thank you for standing up. I did not respond. I did not need to." The general counsel was promoted to chief operating officer. Apparently, being the only person who documented the risk properly had its rewards. She called me personally to let me know. I told them, she said. I told them for months that the named personnel clause was enforceable. They did not listen until it cost them $22 million annually. I asked her why she was telling me this. "Because you should know," she said. "You were not the problem. You were never the problem. And now everyone in the industry knows it." 3 other institutional clients requested relationship reviews, suddenly very interested in their own named personnel clauses. 2 of them moved their assets to competitors within 90 days. The domino effect was spectacular. The firm's assets under management dropped by 19% within 60 days. That represented over $400 million in client capital walking out the door. The management fees alone on those departed accounts exceeded $8 million annually. Recruiting froze. Several key relationship managers jumped to competitors. The ones who stayed were quietly updating their LinkedIn profiles and taking calls from headhunters. The board called an emergency session. The CEO was asked to explain how a single resignation had triggered a cascade of client departures. He did not have a good answer. The financial press picked up the story. Not the details, just the pattern. Major wealth manager loses flagship client after internal restructuring. That was the headline. The subtext was clear. Industry analysts started asking questions about governance, about risk management, about whether the firm could be trusted with long-term relationships. The stock price, for those investors who held shares, dropped 14% in a single week. All because Preston wanted to save money on relationship management. All because he thought efficiency was more important than trust. All because he muted someone on a Zoom call. But me, I was already 6 steps ahead. I had accepted the partnership offer. New firm, new title, new start. The offer came with a signing bonus that was larger than my previous annual salary. It came with equity participation. It came with a seat at the table where decisions were made. Most importantly, it came with respect. Nothing flashy about the new office. Just four walls, a decent view of the harbor, and clients who asked before making changes. Clients who read contracts before restructuring relationships. Clients who understood that the person managing their money was more valuable than the spreadsheet projecting their margins. That Tuesday morning, a bouquet arrived. Deep crimson roses. Simple, elegant, no card, just a single folded note tucked under the ribbon. If you ever want to come back, we will do it your way. I recognized the handwriting. It was the CEO's. The same CEO who had stood by while Preston dismantled my role. The same CEO who had watched the mute button incident without intervening. The same CEO who was now, apparently, having regrets. I did not smile. I did not cry. I just placed the note in my drawer next to a copy of the clause they forgot. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I had stayed quiet, if I had accepted the strategic pivot, if I had let Preston restructure my account and erase my legacy one email at a time. I probably would have survived. I probably would have found another role. I probably would have spent years watching someone else take credit for relationships I had built, but I did not. I chose to leave on my terms. I chose to make my exit visible. I chose to let the clause do what it was designed to do. Now I manage a client book of my own. I build relationships for clients who value trust over efficiency. We have clauses in our agreements too, not because we expect anyone to use them, because we believe in insurance, because we learned from watching what happens when people do not read the fine print. My new partners asked me once what I learned from the experience. I told them the truth. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never assume that silence means agreement. Never think that a person is less valuable than the process they run, and always read the entire contract. They laughed. Then they added a section to their onboarding materials specifically about named personnel clauses. Last week, I got a message from Marcus. He had left the old firm too. Most of the original team had. The ones who stayed were updating their resumes. They are still trying to rebuild, he wrote. They hired 4 people to replace you. It is not going well. The client never came back. The account is gone forever. Preston's centralized team lost 2 more relationships within 6 months. The CEO is under pressure from the board. There are rumors of a leadership change. I read the message twice. Then I closed it without responding. I did not respond. There was nothing left to say. They had their efficiency. I had my freedom. They had their margin projections. I had my integrity. They had Preston. I had Article 9.2. Some trades are worth making. This was one of them. The industry learned something that year. They learned that relationships are not line items on a spreadsheet. They learned that named personnel clauses exist for a reason. They learned that the quiet people who keep the lights on are not expendable. Several firms updated their client agreements after what happened. They added stronger continuity provisions. They added explicit protections for key relationship managers. They added language that would prevent another Preston from making another mistake. I like to think I contributed to that, not by making noise, not by giving interviews, just by doing what I had always done, documenting, waiting, letting the clause speak for itself. The financial press eventually moved on. The story became a footnote in a larger narrative about corporate governance. But the people who mattered remembered. The clients remembered. The relationship managers remembered. The ones who stayed quiet while they were being erased remembered. And maybe, just maybe, some of them started reading their contracts a little more carefully. Funny, I never raised my voice. I just made sure they finally listened. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.